Rain poured violently over the city, blurring headlights and soaking the streets. But the music from the broken radio on the corner never stopped. A young boy, barefoot, thin and shivering, was dancing like the world couldn't touch him. His name was Eli. His clothes were torn, his skin covered with dust, but his movements were alive, wild, free. People hurried past, umbrellas shielding them from the storm, but he didn't care. He spun, slipped, laughed, and got back up again. Inside a black limousine parked nearby, a man watched in silence. His name was Victor Hayes, one of the city's most powerful billionaires. The kind of man who could buy silence with a phone call, who owned half the skyline and yet couldn't fix the one thing that mattered to him: his daughter. Next to him sat a little girl, maybe 9, pale and fragile, her legs covered with a blanket. Lily Hayes hadn't walked or smiled in 6 months, not since the accident that took her mother and left her paralyzed. She barely spoke, barely looked up. But tonight, for the first time, something shifted. Her small eyes widened as she stared at the boy dancing in the rain. Victor noticed. He turned his head sharply, surprised by that faint spark on her face. "Lily?" he whispered, unsure if he was dreaming. She didn't answer, but her lips trembled into the smallest smile, one that seemed foreign to her face now. Her fingers twitched slightly, as if to the rhythm of the boy's movements. Victor followed her gaze, out to the boy spinning in puddles, water splashing everywhere. The boy jumped, twisted, landed, and kept going. Pure emotion turned into rhythm. There was no crowd cheering him, no stage, no music worthy of the passion in his feet, just a broken radio and a drenched soul refusing to give up. "Stop the car!" Victor ordered. The driver hesitated for half a second, then obeyed. The billionaire stepped out into the storm, his expensive suit instantly drenched. The rain hit his face hard, but he barely blinked. His eyes were fixed on Eli. The boy noticed him and froze. The music faded into static, and silence filled the night except for the rain's beating. Eli lowered his head, thinking he was about to be scolded for being too loud or too close to the rich man's car. Victor took a step closer. "Hey, you," he called out, his voice calm but powerful. Eli looked up cautiously. "I'm not stealing, sir," he said quickly, lifting his hands in surrender. "I was just dancing, that's all." Victor tilted his head. "What's your name?" "Eli," the boy muttered, his voice trembling from cold. "Eli. Just Eli. Why are you dancing out here in the rain?" The boy smiled weakly, rubbing his arms for warmth. "Because rain hides tears, sir, and it's the only time nobody laughs at me when I fall." That answer hit Victor somewhere deep. He stared at the boy, this strange mixture of pain and joy. "Do you dance for money?" he asked. Eli shook his head. "No, sir. I dance because I'm alive. It's all I got." Victor's jaw tightened. He glanced back at his car, at Lily watching silently through the window. He could see her face, soft, curious, and more awake than he'd seen in months. He turned back to Eli. "Come with me." The boy's eyes widened in fear. "Sir, I didn't do anything, I swear." Victor raised a hand. "Relax. I'm not going to hurt you. My daughter—" He paused, struggling with the words. "She smiled because of you. She hasn't smiled in months." Eli looked toward the car, confused. Through the tinted glass, he saw Lily's pale face looking back at him, eyes wide and shining. "She smiled. Because of me?" he asked softly. Victor nodded. "Yes. So I'm asking you, would you come and dance for her? Not here, at my home. You'll be taken care of." The boy blinked, unsure if this was a dream or a trick. You mean, in your house? Like, dance in your house? Yes, Victor said simply. For her. Eli's heart raced. He looked down at his bare feet, then at Victor's shiny shoes sinking into the wet pavement. Sir, I don't belong in a place like that, he said, shaking his head. I don't even have shoes. Victor's voice softened. That doesn't matter to me. What matters is what you did just now. You made my daughter feel something again. Eli stared at him for a long time before nodding slowly. Okay, I'll dance for her, but only if she wants me to. Victor smiled faintly. Fair enough. He gestured toward the car. Come on. As the door opened, Eli hesitated. The interior glowed with warm light and expensive leather seats, nothing like the cold street he'd just been dancing on. Lily's gaze followed him as he climbed in, dripping wet. He gave her an awkward smile. Hey, he said softly. You liked my dance. She didn't answer, but her eyes met his, and for a moment, something invisible connected them. Pain, recognizing pain. Victor watched them silently. Inside, a strange warmth began to bloom in his chest, a feeling he hadn't known since his wife was alive. When they reached the mansion, Eli stepped out, his mouth dropping open at the sight of it. The building looked like something from a movie. Towering marble pillars, endless windows, golden lights reflecting off wet stones. This place, Eli whispered. It's bigger than the whole street I live on. Victor led him inside. Servants froze at the sight of the dripping boy, eyes wide with confusion. Sir, one of them began. Should we? No, Victor interrupted. Prepare a warm meal and some towels. He's our guest. Eli's stomach growled the moment he heard meal. He blushed and muttered, Sorry. Lily's wheelchair rolled in quietly behind them. She looked at him again, still not speaking. But there was curiosity in her eyes. Victor turned to Eli. Tomorrow, you'll dance for her. Tonight, you rest. You'll have a room here. A room? Eli said, astonished. Like, my own room? Victor smiled. Yes, every performer needs a place to dream. That night, as Eli lay in a bed softer than any ground he'd ever slept on, he stared at the ceiling and whispered to himself, What if this is all a dream? What if I wake up hungry again tomorrow? But it wasn't a dream. And what would happen next would change all of their lives forever. Morning sunlight streamed into the guest room, painting the walls gold. Eli blinked awake, his mind foggy, unsure if the warmth under his blanket was real. The smell of fresh bread drifted through the air. He sat up slowly, half expecting to find himself back under the bridge where he used to sleep. But no, the bed was real. The pillow was soft. For the first time in years, he'd slept without fear of being chased away. He dressed in the clothes folded neatly beside him, simple but clean, and followed the distant sound of a piano echoing through the mansion. When he reached the grand living room, his bare feet sank into the plush carpet. There, at the far end of the room, sat Lily in her wheelchair, playing a soft tune. Victor stood nearby, sipping his coffee, eyes fixed on her with quiet hope. Lily stopped when she saw Eli. Her fingers froze above the keys. Eli waved awkwardly. Good morning, Miss Lily, he said shyly. That sounded beautiful. She looked at him for a moment before whispering, You can just call me Lily. Her voice, gentle but real, startled Victor. It had been weeks since she'd spoken to anyone but her nurse. Eli grinned. Okay, Lily, you ready for a dance? Lily blinked, then nodded slightly. Victor turned to the butler. Play something cheerful. Soft music filled the room, something slow, elegant. Eli took a deep breath and stepped into the rhythm. At first, his movements were small, cautious, unsure if he belonged in this place of marble and chandeliers. But as the melody swelled, he forgot the walls, the judgment, the distance between rich and poor. His body remembered the language it spoke best: freedom. He spun, jumped, glided across the floor, the morning light catching droplets of sweat and making them glimmer like sparks. Lily's eyes followed every movement. And then, unexpectedly, she laughed. A small, pure sound that filled the mansion. Victor froze mid-sip. He hadn't heard that laugh since the accident. He set his cup down slowly, his hands trembling. The sound pierced through every dark corner of his heart. When the song ended, Eli stopped, panting slightly. "Was that good enough?" he asked, smiling nervously. Lily clapped, clumsy at first, then faster. "Again," she said, her voice clearer. "Please." Victor's eyes softened. "Eli," he said, "I think she means it." Eli laughed, breathless. "Guess I got a fan now." For days that followed, Eli became a regular part of the household. Every morning, he would dance for Lily. Sometimes, she'd play piano for him, and he'd move to her music. Other times, they'd sit in the garden and talk. Well, mostly he'd talk, and she'd listen with small smiles that grew bigger each day. Victor watched their bond grow. He noticed Lily's hands gaining strength, her laughter echoing more often. Even the staff began to whisper about how the billionaire's home finally felt alive again. One evening, Victor found Eli sitting outside near the fountain, gazing at the stars. "You did something I couldn't do," Victor said quietly. "You brought my daughter back to life." Eli shrugged. "She's the one healing herself, sir. I just gave her music." Victor sat beside him, something he'd never done with anyone outside his world of wealth. "Do you have parents, Eli?" The boy hesitated, then looked down. "Had. My mom passed when I was 9. My dad left before that. I tried staying with my aunt, but she couldn't feed me and her kids. So I left." Victor felt a weight in his chest. "How long have you been on the streets?" 4 years now," Eli said softly. "It's not so bad when you have music. The city talks to you if you listen right." Victor nodded, staring at the boy. "You remind me of someone," he said after a long pause. "Someone who used to believe every broken thing could still sing." "Your wife?" Eli guessed. Victor's throat tightened. "Yes." The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was heavy, meaningful. For the first time, Victor felt less like a billionaire and more like a father again. The next morning, the house buzzed with new energy. Lily had asked her father if Eli could stay permanently. "He makes me happy," she said, "and I think he's lonely." Victor smiled. "Then he stays." Word spread quickly among the staff. Some welcomed the boy with smiles, others frowned. They whispered in corners how a street dancer didn't belong among chandeliers and gold-framed paintings. But Eli ignored them. He only cared about Lily's laughter. Weeks passed. One day, as he danced in the garden, Lily clapped her hands in rhythm. Her nurse whispered something to Victor, who watched from the balcony. "She's moving her legs slightly," she said. "She's responding to the music." Victor's heart skipped. He rushed down, eyes wide with disbelief. "Lily," he said, "do that again." Lily frowned with concentration, gripping her chair's armrests. Her legs trembled, just a twitch, but enough to make tears well up in Victor's eyes. Eli froze mid-spin, watching in awe. "She moved," Victor whispered. "She really moved." Lily smiled weakly. Maybe the music woke them up. That night, Victor couldn't sleep. He sat by Lily's bedside, staring at her small feet under the blanket. He had spent millions on therapy, surgeries, and specialists. Yet, here was a boy with nothing, no degree, no money, who brought miracles with nothing but rhythm and heart. But not everyone shared Victor's admiration. Later that week, as Eli helped Lily adjust her blanket, two maids whispered nearby. "He's not one of us," one said. "A street boy dancing in the mansion like he owns it. He'll steal something one day," the other muttered. "People like him don't change." Eli pretended not to hear, but inside, the words burned. That night, he sat by his window, looking out at the city lights, his stomach twisted with doubt. "Maybe they're right," he whispered to himself. "Maybe I don't belong here." The next morning, he danced, but his movements were slower, hesitant. Lily noticed immediately. "What's wrong, Eli?" she asked softly. "Nothing," he lied, forcing a smile. "Just tired." But she didn't believe him. Her eyes followed him with quiet worry. Later that day, Victor approached him. "Eli, my daughter's progress has been remarkable. I want to thank you properly. What would you wish for? Money? A school? Anything?" Eli shook his head. "No, sir. I don't want anything." Victor frowned. "Everyone wants something." Eli looked him in the eye. "I already have what I wanted, sir. A place to belong. Someone who believes in me." Victor's chest tightened again. He placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. "Then you'll always have that here." But destiny wasn't done testing them. That night, thunder roared again over the mansion. Eli lay awake, staring at the ceiling, unaware that the same staff who whispered before were now planning something cruel. They couldn't stand how the billionaire favored a street boy. And before dawn, they'd make sure Victor Hayes would doubt him too.
He froze as his eyes met hers, and for a moment everything stopped. The girl, pale and delicate in her wheelchair, had her eyes fixed on him with such focus it almost startled him. Then the corners of her lips twitched into the faintest smile, something fragile and pure. The boy smiled back awkwardly, unsure if he should keep dancing. But she raised her trembling hand, the one not completely paralyzed, and then gestured faintly for him to continue. So he did. He spun again, this time slower, gentler. The music of the busy street mixed with the hum of car engines, the chatter of strangers, and somehow his steps fit into that chaos like a heartbeat. For the first time in weeks, the girl laughed, a tiny sound, almost like a broken bell ringing after the years of silence. Inside the car, Mr. Hayes couldn't look away. That laugh, he hadn't heard it in years. Since the accident, since the doctor said she might not walk again, laughter had vanished from his home like a bird escaping its cage. He stepped out of the car. The bodyguard looked alarmed. "Sir?" But Hayes raised his hand. "It's fine. Stay here." He crossed the street, ignoring the drizzle that had begun to fall. The boy saw him coming and immediately stopped, clutching his chest. His eyes darted around, ready to run. He thought he was in trouble. "Wait," Hayes said calmly, his deep voice cutting through the noise. "What's your name?" The boy swallowed hard. "Liam," he said quietly, his accent raw and street thick. "And what are you doing here, Liam?" Liam hesitated. "Just dancing." "For her," he said, glancing toward the girl in the wheelchair. "She looks sad." Hayes turned and looked at his daughter. She was still smiling. "Are you truly smiling, Jonathan?" For the first time since her mother's death and the accident that took her legs. His throat tightened. "You danced for her?" Hayes asked again. "Yes, sir. I didn't mean no harm." Hayes studied him carefully. His clothes were torn, his shoes had holes, and there was a scar running across his forehead. But his eyes, those eyes, carried something rare, honesty, pain, and an untamed spark. "Come with me," Hayes said. Liam blinked, stepping back. "Sir, I didn't steal nothing, I swear." "I didn't say you did," Hayes replied softly. "Come, I want you to meet her properly." The boy hesitated, then followed, nervous but curious. As they reached the car, the girl's smile widened. "Daddy, she said weakly, her voice raspy but alive. He dances like the wind. Hayes looked at her and his heart cracked open. Yes, he does. Liam shuffled awkwardly, his hands deep in his pockets. Hi, he said to her, his voice unsure. Hi, she replied shyly. I'm Emily. He grinned. Nice name. You like dancing? I used to, she said softly. Before the accident. Liam's smile faded. He didn't ask. What accident? He could see it in her legs, the way they didn't move, the way her eyes flickered with something that wasn't just sadness but memory. Hayes watched them in silence. Something about this boy's energy pulled Emily out of the fog she'd been trapped in. It was strange, unexpected, but it was real. After a pause, Hayes asked, where do you live, Liam? Liam hesitated, his eyes dropping to the pavement. Nowhere, sir, just around. Hayes frowned. You mean you're homeless? The boy nodded. Been that way for a while now. And you dance on the streets? Yeah, it's what I got. People give coins sometimes. He shrugged. I used to dance for my mom before she passed. She said I had fire in my feet. There was silence. Emily blinked rapidly, her eyes watering. Hayes felt something twist deep in his chest, a strange mix of guilt and admiration. Then, without warning, Emily spoke. Daddy, can he come dance for me again, please? Hayes looked at her. Her face was glowing, bright with a spark he thought was gone forever. He turned to Liam. Would you? Liam shrugged, half smiling. Sure, if she wants. And just like that, a homeless boy and a billionaire's daughter began an unlikely friendship. That evening, as the rain thickened, Hayes invited Liam inside their mansion, something his staff had never seen him do with a stranger before. They whispered among themselves as the soaked, ragged boy followed the billionaire into the grand hall. Emily giggled softly as Liam imitated one of the maid's serious expressions. He danced for her again, this time in the living room, and she clapped with genuine joy, even managing to move her fingers in rhythm. Hayes watched from a distance, emotion clouding his usually sharp eyes. That night, he couldn't sleep. He kept replaying the sight of his daughter's smile, the way that boy brought light into a room he thought would forever remain dark. But questions haunted him too. Who was Liam really? Where did he come from? Why was he alone on the streets? The next morning, he called his assistant. I want background information on that boy. Quietly. No police, no fuss, just find out who he is. As the assistant nodded and left, Emily rolled her wheelchair into the office. Daddy, she said. Liam's sleeping in the guest room, right? Yes, sweetheart, just for a few days. Her eyes softened. He said his mom used to sing to him when he danced. Maybe I could play piano while he dances. Hayes froze. You want to play again? She nodded shyly. I haven't touched it in months, but I want to try. For him. He felt his throat tighten again. He simply nodded, his voice cracking. All right, sweetheart, you play. Later that afternoon, when Liam woke up to the sound of Emily struggling to press the piano keys, he walked into the room quietly. You play nice, he said. Softly, she giggled. Nico, not yet, my hands are rusty. Then we'll both practice, he said, and so they did. Every day, Liam danced while Emily played. She laughed more, spoke more, even ate better. The house began to feel alive again, but the assistant's report came back 2 weeks later, and what it contained would change everything. Mr. Hayes stared at the papers, his jaw tightening as he read. His eyes darkened. Liam wasn't just a homeless boy. His father had once worked for Hayes Industries. Before he was fired under mysterious circumstances, a man who had accused Hayes' company of corruption and died months later in an accident. Hayes' hands trembled slightly. He looked out the window toward the garden where Liam and Emily were laughing. He whispered to himself, "What are you really doing here, boy?"
Victor couldn't stop thinking about it. The papers sat untouched on his desk while outside. Emily's laughter echoed through the garden, carried by the soft breeze. He tried to reconcile what he read with the boy, dancing joyfully in the rain, with the boy who had brought his daughter's first real smile in months. Could someone so full of light carry a shadow like that? That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the mansion, Victor found himself in the garden. Liam was there, barefoot and spinning in perfect rhythm, Emily clapping along in her wheelchair. Victor's voice broke the peaceful moment. Liam, can we talk? The boy froze mid-spin, eyes wary. Yes, sir? Victor walked closer. I've learned things about your family, about your past. Things that might complicate your life if you don't tell me the truth. Liam's smile faltered. He swallowed hard. Sir, I don't know what you mean. Victor's gaze softened. You don't have to lie. Whatever it is, it won't change what you mean to my daughter. The boy hesitated, then lowered his gaze. My dad. He had problems with your company years ago. I didn't know much, just stories I overheard. People said he was angry at you. I don't even know if it's true. His voice wavered. I didn't come here for revenge. I came here to dance, to help someone smile, I swear. Victor studied him, searching his eyes. And then he saw it. The truth. The boy wasn't scheming. He wasn't plotting. He was pure. Every movement, every laugh, every tumble in the puddles, it had all been honest, untouched by vengeance. A silence fell between them. Then Emily reached out, her small hand brushing against Liam's arm. I like your dancing, she said softly. I like it a lot. The boy's eyes widened. You really mean that? She nodded, smiling. You make me happy. Victor felt something shift inside him. The darkness in the report, the doubts, all seemed to dissipate in the light of that simple truth. He placed a hand on Liam's shoulder. Then I think you belong here. No matter what the past says, you've given my daughter something I could never buy. The weeks that followed were transformative. Liam became more than a guest. He became family. He trained in dance, but also in reading and writing, guided by tutors Victor hired. Emily continued to play piano for him, slowly regaining her own confidence and strength. One day, as the three of them practiced together in the grand hall, Victor noticed something he hadn't seen in months. Emily's legs began to twitch, responding to the rhythm of the dance. Her fingers moved faster across the piano keys. She laughed, and the sound echoed like music itself. Victor's heart soared. He had spent a fortune on therapy, specialists, equipment, and yet nothing compared to what this boy with no home, no wealth, and nothing but rhythm and heart had achieved. But the real miracle came one rainy afternoon, months later. Liam had taken Emily to the garden, music playing softly from a small speaker. He encouraged her, step by step, to stand. Hesitant at first, then stronger. Tears streamed down Victor's face as he watched from the balcony. Emily took her first real steps, wobbling but determined, reaching toward Liam. He caught her hands and cheered, spinning her slowly as she laughed freely, her body moving in rhythm with the dance. The staff, once skeptical, watched in awe. Servants whispered to each other, the previous doubts now replaced with amazement. Victor embraced Liam, pulling him close. You've done more than I could ever imagine. You've healed her, boy. You've healed all of us. Liam shook his head, tears in his eyes. I just danced, sir. She found herself in the music. That's all. Victor smiled through his own tears. No, Liam. You gave hope when we all thought it was gone. That's more than anyone could ever do. Eventually, Victor made it official. Liam would stay in the mansion, fully supported, and the three of them established a small foundation to help underprivileged children discover dance and music, just as Liam had discovered for himself. They called it Steps of Hope. Years later, the story of a billionaire, his paralyzed daughter, and a homeless boy who danced in the rain became a legend. Emily grew up strong and confident, a talented pianist an advocate for children's therapy through music. Liam became a professional dancer and mentor, helping kids who had nothing to discover their own talents and strength. And Victor? He realized something profound. Money could buy comfort, luxury, and even treatment, but it could never buy joy, connection, or healing. Those things came from courage, honesty, and a heart willing to give without expecting anything in return. On a bright afternoon, standing together in the garden, Emily and Liam danced side by side, their laughter mixing with the wind. Victor watched from the porch, smiling quietly. He had found something he didn't know he was missing, a reminder that life's greatest miracles often come from the most unexpected places. And that night, as the rain began to fall again, they didn't run from it. Liam danced in it, Emily clapped and laughed, and Victor finally understood that some blessings could never be measured in wealth, only in love, courage, and the joy of seeing someone rise again. Because sometimes, the smallest gestures, the simplest acts, and the purest hearts could change everything. And in that moment, in the mansion where marble walls met the soft patter of rain, a billionaire, a little girl, and a boy with nothing found something greater than money, hope, joy, and family.